Russell is also 18th district.
That's right. Also against Neil Lowy.
What's your name?
Jim Russell.
Jim Russell.
Walmart. The 18th is along the coast of the river. Goes back from West Nyack through Congers, New City, up to Haverstraw, little town of Field. I ran against Neil Lowy 2 years ago, and probably was the worst time to run as a Republican candidate. Well, I did get 32% of the vote, much better here in Rockland, actually, around about $14,000, and she spent close to $1.5 million.
Wow.
To pick up on this last issue here, Neil Lowy is 100% for amnesty. I call it Obamnesty, which is coming up next.
Right.
We have to stop it. And if you think that Obamacare is bad, Obamnesty is even worse. That'll totally stress out all social services in this country. But we have to look at not only what people promise they will do, but what they have done. And I've been active in the immigration movement for many years. I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. It's one of the first places that was hit by massive immigration right after the Immigration Act of 1965 was passed. So when I came here to Westchester, I noticed that the same things were happening, and I was really struck by some of the terrible crimes, especially the murder of Mary Nagel in New City in 2005. And I attended that trial with my wife. I was so upset about this. I created an organization, Westchester Rockland Citizens for Immigration Control. I became active in Rockland and in Westchester, things like trying to set up hiring sites, which I opposed there successfully, and especially to try and make sure that illegal aliens who are convicted of crimes are deported. This makes basic sense. That's not the case. In the case of Mary Nagel, the attacker, he had been previously arrested for violently assaulting his girlfriend and let go. And a similar case in Westchester County, a young girl, Butler, who was graduating from high school. Again, she was raped and murdered by illegal aliens who had previously been arrested for a violent crime, but not deported. So it's very important that the Rockland County Jail, and here in Rockland, you have some better legislators, and Mr. Sparaco was looking out for your interests. But unfortunately, it's not the same case in Westchester, where someone finishes up their term in jail and they're just let out to commit additional crimes. In fact, Neil Lowy did absolutely nothing about this. Even when she was asked by the Democrat county executive, Spano, he asked her in a letter saying, please help us because we have over 700 illegal aliens on probation for crimes. And even though I wasn't an elected official at the time, when I was running in 2008, I went down to Washington, D.C., and I actually met with the woman in charge, Julie Myers, in charge of ICE, and personally asked her to intervene to try and clear up the situation. And one of the main issues I think is really going to confront America. It's going to determine really what our nation is going to be in the future for our children. This immigration issue. Another issue is outsourcing of American jobs and the H-1B visas. I lost my job at AT&T by being laid off when they hired Indian workers who were being imported here to pay them less for computer jobs. And it continues on. Neil Lowy was a big supporter of this. And it's not only the outsourcing of jobs. IBM has 30% of its jobs in China and India. We need a strong national economy. America must come first in all of our economic considerations. Another issue I've always been concerned about is affirmative action in employment, hiring, promotions, and in college applications. It's ridiculous. My daughter was applying for colleges, and it's just totally unfair the way the affirmative action system works in this country. So, especially in the hiring of police and firemen, it could impact our safety and security in the future. So that's one additional issue that I've taken a stand on when many other people would not. I invite all of you to join with me as I run once again against Neil Lowy. This year, I think I have a much better chance. I laid the groundwork in 2008, and I think we can really send her into retirement this year.
Okay.
Why hasn't 287G been effective in combating?
That's a good question. 287G is a provision of the Immigration Act of 1996 that allows local communities to enforce immigration rules, so that if a police officer apprehends a person they believe is an illegal alien in the commission of a crime, they can have access to databases and call in the ICE right away. Now, there have been some communities, a sheriff that I met with in Rockland County who was working on this over here, but there's been massive opposition. You see that the pro-illegal immigration, the pro-amnesty movement is very strong with the politicians, and they're trying to block the 287G proposals. There are a few towns, one is Brewster that they're trying to utilize that, but I've always been an advocate for trying to get 287G passed so we can protect ourselves.
I think the church wants that listed.
I wrote a book on that about the church, and it's actually
They didn't do that.
What's your position on Israel? You've seen a lot coming out of this administration that I consider to be anti-Israel and anti-our allies, and I think it's really being done on purpose. So can you please address that? Thank you.
I believe in a strong national defense, and I also have a position on foreign policy, on foreign aid that sees it as a form of international welfare in a sense. I believe that at this particular time in our nation's history, we have to look out for American interests first and don't want to be drawn into more of that seething cauldron of the Middle East. So I believe in more of an independent role of the United States. Yes, sir.
As far as the issue with the outsourcing of the jobs that have just gone overseas and all, what would be your ideas of how you can combat that and try and bring some of that?
Well, one thing with outsourcing more, we want to repeal NAFTA and CAFTA. All of our manufacturing jobs have gone over to China, to Mexico. Our balance of trade is continuing the trade deficit is continuing to increase. So by having some degree of fair trade that looks out for the American worker, as opposed to just trying to allow the corporate elite to enrich themselves, I think would help out by restoring some of the tariffs we have on foreign goods coming into this country, so that American workers can get the first shots at the American market. Yes, sir.
Last question.
The U.S. Geological Survey last year, April, released a survey stating that 3 to 4.3 billion barrels of oil are in North Dakota and Montana's Vulcan Formation, which is 25 times what they forecasted in 1995. Yet we're not really tapping into those reserves. Right? That in itself would have an economy boom like you wouldn't believe in this country. And what I'm saying is when representatives are talking, that's all you get is little bits of information, but there's nothing direct. There's nothing that says, if we drill, why can't we drill here? And explain the location, explain what product is there, and explain how it benefits. This is what we need from people who are going to represent us, is to be able to give the information that can be verified. And I mean, this is off the U.S. Geological website right here. All right? That's a lot of oil. We don't need to go to Saudi Arabia. Right. Any of them. Take it off the market.
What district would you like to run in?
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.